The forest was alive tonight, but not with peace. It breathed in jagged gasps, branches snapping like bones, wind howling through hollow trunks like wounded spirits. Rain poured in silver sheets, slashing through the darkness, soaking the earth until it bled mud and fear. The air smelled of lightning and something darker, something hunting. Through that chaos ran a girl, Mira Vale, barefoot, breathless, broken but not beaten. Each step tore her skin open. Thorns bit into her ankles. Her pulse was a drum in her throat. She could taste blood on her tongue and hear her heartbeat in her ears, louder than the storm. Somewhere behind her, deep growls rolled through the trees like thunder, low, hungry, merciless. The rogues were close. She didn't dare look back. She'd already seen what they'd done to the others. The smell of burnt fur and copper still clung to her memory. They didn't hunt for food. They hunted for her. Lightning split the sky, and for a second the world turned to glass. Every drop of rain, every trembling leaf frozen in light. In that moment, she saw the shadow wolves moving between the trees, eyes glowing a sickly red, their forms melting into the mist. They weren't natural, not anymore. They belonged to him, the rogue alpha, the one who wanted her alive. Why, she didn't know, only that his name was whispered like a curse, Draven. Her lungs screamed for air, her heart begged for mercy. But mercy was something Mira had never been given. She stumbled over a root and hit the ground hard, palms scraping against wet rock. Pain flared, sharp and hot, but she pushed herself up. The rain was colder now, crueler, slapping her skin like punishment. She could barely see through the fog, but she knew where she had to go, the river, the Moonfall River. They said its water carried whispers of the goddess. That under its light, no wolf dared to kill. Mira didn't believe in those old tales anymore. But tonight, she had nothing else left to believe in. She ran. Her dress clung to her like a second skin, torn and heavy with mud. Her hair stuck to her cheeks, dark strands plastered with rain and blood. Every breath burned. Every heartbeat was a plea. She could hear them closing in, the crunch of paws against wet leaves, the hiss of breath between teeth. The forest itself seemed to lean closer, holding its breath. Then, silence. The kind that hurts your ears. Mira froze. Water dripped from her chin. Her hand clutched the amulet hanging from her neck, a small glowing stone that pulsed faintly with light, like a heartbeat trying to match her own. She whispered, barely a sound. "Please, not yet. Just a little longer." The amulet's glow flickered, then steadied. She took one trembling step forward, then another. The river's sound was close now, rushing wild and angry through the valley. If she could just reach it. A growl broke the silence. Deep, hungry, right behind her. Her body moved before her mind could think. She darted through the trees, branches tearing at her arms. The world blurred, her feet splashed into cold water. She'd reached the river, but as she turned, she saw them. 3 wolves, huge, black as shadow, eyes burning like embers, their fur slicked with rain, their teeth gleaming white in the flashes of lightning. They were circling her, slow, deliberate, confident. Mira's hand went to her arm, blood mixing with rain. Her magic burned there, begging to be set free. She could feel it rise, that dangerous warmth spreading through her veins like fire under her skin. But she knew the cost. She'd lost control once before, and people had died. "No," she whispered to herself. Not again. The wolves snarled. One leaped forward. Mira threw up her hand. Light exploded. A blast of silver flame shot from her palm, slamming into the creature mid-air. It screamed, a sound that didn't belong to this world, as its body twisted and burned away into mist. The other two hesitated, growling low. But Mira collapsed. The world spun. The power had drained her too fast. Her vision blurred, and she fell to her knees in the freezing river. Her skin felt like it was on fire. The amulet around her neck glowed brighter, trying to steady her pulse, but her breath came in shallow gasps. She whispered to the night, "Moon goddess, please." Another growl echoed, closer now. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was a figure stepping out of the rain. Tall, broad, cloaked in shadow, eyes glowing, not red like the rogues, but gold, warm, ancient, dangerous. The wolves stopped, whimpering. The figure spoke, a low, rough voice that rolled like thunder. "Enough." And just like that, the forest obeyed. The wolves lowered their heads and melted into the mist. The man stepped closer, his boots sinking into the mud, the storm raging around him. He looked down at her, this trembling, half-conscious girl who had lit up the night like a comet. His gaze lingered on the amulet, then on her face. For a heartbeat, something unreadable crossed his expression, pain maybe, or recognition. Mira tried to speak, but her voice was gone. The man crouched, his fingers brushing a strand of wet hair from her cheek. His touch was shockingly gentle. He muttered something under his breath, words she couldn't understand, but they made her heart ache. She wanted to ask him who he was, why the wolves feared him. Why did her body feel safe, even now, so close to a stranger? But the darkness took her before she could. When Mira woke again, there was warmth. Not the warmth of sunlight. It was night still, but the warmth of fire, crackling close by. Her body lay wrapped in a thick fur blanket. Her wounds were bandaged with clean cloth. The smell of herbs hung in the air. She blinked slowly, her vision swimming. The cave was dimly lit, shadows flickering along stone walls slick with rainwater. Somewhere outside, the storm had died, replaced by the steady rhythm of dripping water. And then she heard it, footsteps, slow, steady, confidence, the man from the river. He stepped into the firelight, and Mira's breath caught. He was unlike anyone she'd ever seen. His presence filled the cave the way thunder filled the sky. His hair was dark, damp from the storm, falling over sharp chiseled features. His eyes glowed faintly gold, but not in a monstrous way, in a way that made her heart stutter. His jaw was marked with faint scars, like reminders of wars he'd already won. He wasn't a rogue. He wasn't like them. But he wasn't safe either. "You should have stayed hidden," he said, his voice low, smooth as stone. Mira tried to sit up, but pain lanced through her side. She winced. Who are you?" He didn't answer right away. He moved closer, crouching beside her. The firelight danced across his face, casting gold shadows on his cheekbones. "Rylan," he said finally. "Alpha of Silver Ridge." Her eyes widened. Silver Ridge was one of the oldest, strongest packs in the Northern Territories, known for their loyalty and their ruthlessness. "If you're Alpha," she whispered, "then why save me?" He held her gaze for a long time before answering. "Because I couldn't let them have you." Mira's heart tripped over itself. "You don't even know me." His eyes darkened. "You're wrong." Something in his tone made her chest tighten. She didn't understand it, How could he know her? She'd been hidden her whole life, cast out, cursed. And yet, the way he looked at her, it was like he'd been waiting for her. He rose to his full height and turned away, the muscles in his shoulders flexing beneath his shirt. "Rest," he said. "You're safe here." She wanted to believe him, but safety wasn't something she'd ever had. The fire crackled softly between them. The rain outside had slowed to a whisper. Mira's eyes drifted to the amulet, still glowing faintly at her throat. She touched it gently, feeling its warmth, its pulse. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryland's back stiffened. He didn't turn around when he spoke. Nothing. And everything. The air in the cave felt suddenly too thick, too heavy. Mira's heart pounded. He turned then, his gaze pinning her in place. "You shouldn't have used that magic," he said. "They'll come for you again." Her fingers tightened on the amulet. "Let them." Ryland's mouth twitched, half a smile, half sorrow. "You don't even know what you are, do you?" Mira's breath caught. "What am I?" He stepped closer, and the firelight flickered between them, casting their shadows on the wall. Two figures that looked almost like they were merging. His voice dropped lower, rougher. "You're not just human, Mira Vale, and you're not just cursed." He paused, eyes flicking to the amulet again. "You're marked by the goddess herself." Outside, thunder rumbled again, distant, like an echo of what was coming. Inside the cave, time stood still. Mira stared into Ryland's golden eyes and felt something stir inside her. Something ancient, something alive. She didn't understand it yet, but she felt it. The bond, the pull. The quiet hum in her blood that whispered his name before she even knew she should. Her heart was a drum, her soul a storm. And somewhere deep inside her, the moon listened. If this story pulls you in, sub-heartbroken light mate stories. Every full moon, we tell tales that make your heart race, your soul ache, and your imagination run wild beneath the stars. The world around Mira dissolved into blackness, rain, thunder, and the echo of her heartbeat fading into a void. The last thing she remembered was the river's icy embrace and the coppery scent of her own blood. Then, warmth, strong, steady warmth pressed against her body. Her lashes fluttered open to dim, flickering light. A campfire owned the scent of smoke, pine, and something darker, something wild, filled her lungs. Her vision blurred, but she saw him. A man. No, not a man. A presence. Tall, broad, and carved from shadow. His damp hair clung to his temples, his jaw dusted with stubble. Golden eyes burned in the darkness. Too bright, too feral to be human. Mira's breath hitched. Her instinct screamed run, but her body couldn't move. He crouched beside her, his hand hovering just above her skin as if afraid to touch. His voice was low, deep enough to rumble through her bones. "You shouldn't be here, Mira Vale." Her name on his lips sounded like a command, not a question. How did he know her name? She tried to sit up, but pain tore through her arm. The claw marks had reopened, glowing faintly beneath her skin. He caught her wrist before she could touch the wound, his grip strong but careful. Heat pulsed from his hand into her skin. The glow dimmed, her lips parted in shock. "What are you—" "Healing you," he said, eyes narrowing. "Or trying to." His voice had that alpha edge, the kind that brooked no argument. Still, his touch wasn't cruel. It was steady, controlled. But beneath it, Mira felt something simmering. Power coiled like lightning, restrained but ready to strike. She blinked, dazed. "You're one of them." He didn't answer immediately. His gaze lifted toward the forest, where faint howls echoed, distant but approaching. His jaw clenched. "Rogues," he muttered. "They won't stop until they find you." "Why?" she whispered. His eyes met hers, gold flickering to amber. "Because you're not supposed to exist." The fire cracked. Her pulse raced. He stood, towering above her, his coat soaked and clinging to his chest. The scars along his neck caught the light. Thin, silver, old. Battle scars, alpha marks. When he offered her his hand, she hesitated. Everything about him screamed danger. But when thunder rolled again, she reached for it. His fingers closed around hers, and she felt it, that invisible current. The world stilled for one heartbeat too long. The wind paused. The fire flickered sideways. Something ancient and unspoken passed between them. His eyes softened, just for a second, then hardened again. "You'll come with me," he said. "It's not safe here." He led her through the forest, silent and sure-footed. His beta, a lean man with a scar across his jaw, appeared out of the trees. His wolf scent was sharp and cold. "Alpha," the beta growled. "Who is she?" "A survivor," Ryland said. "A liability," the beta countered. His gaze swept Mira from head to toe. "She smells of blood magic." Ryland's golden eyes cut toward him, and the beta fell silent instantly. No more was said. They traveled under the moonlight until the forest gave way to a valley, Silver Ridge territory. The smell of rain faded into pine, smoke, and faint wolf musk. The pack settlement lay below, houses carved from timber and stone, their windows glowing like embers. Mira's legs trembled as they descended the slope. She caught herself glancing at Rylan again, at the way his back straightened, the subtle weight of command in every movement. His silence wasn't cold, it was measured, like a man who'd learned to guard every word. When they reached the outpost, whispers started immediately. "She's human. No, she reeks of witch blood. Why would the Alpha bring her here?" Mira's chest tightened. She wanted to disappear. Inside the safe house, Rylan motioned for her to sit by the hearth. The fire roared to life as if obeying his unspoken order. He turned to the beta. "Have the healer come, and tell no one outside the council." The beta hesitated. "Alpha, this is reckless. If the elders find out..." "I'll handle the elders." The beta bowed and left. Silence fell, the kind that prickled. Mira swallowed hard. "You should have left me." He looked at her sharply. "I don't leave people to die." "You don't even know me." Something flickered in his gaze. Sorrow, anger, recognition. "That's where you're wrong," he said quietly. Mira froze. "Your name was whispered once, by a dying seer. She said you'd bring ruin or salvation to my pack." Her voice trembled. "And you believed her?" "I believe what I see," Rylan said. His eyes raked over her, stopping at the glowing marks on her arm. "And right now, I see a woman who doesn't know what she's carrying." She stared at the faint light pulsing beneath her skin. The amulet at her neck vibrated again, softly humming, a heartbeat that wasn't hers. Rylan stepped closer, and the light intensified. The moment his hand brushed the amulet, a flash of energy burst between them, white and violent. Mira gasped. He staggered back. The air smelled like ozone and iron. They both stared, breathless. "What was that?" he demanded. Her voice broke. I don't know. But she did. Deep down, she knew. That amulet, her mother's last gift, was more than a charm. It was a seal. And whatever it was holding back was waking up. Rylan paced the room, his frustration barely contained. His wolf wanted to emerge, wanted to claim, to protect, to understand, but he kept it buried under command. You're dangerous, he said finally. Then why save me? He stopped pacing. His gaze met hers again, raw, conflicted. Because something in me couldn't walk away. The silence between them deepened, no longer heavy but charged. Mira's heartbeat thrummed in her ears. She saw it then, the man beneath the alpha. The one who carried the weight of lives on his shoulders, and yet still reached out to a stranger in the dark. And in that moment, she realized something terrifying. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. She was afraid of how much she wanted him to stay. If this story has your heart racing already, the narrator whispers, voice low and inviting, subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories, where every full moon we dive into tales of forbidden love, dangerous alphas, and fated hearts that can't stay apart. The night is just beginning. The night deepened over Silver Ridge. The moon climbed higher, spilling its pale glow across the mountains, turning mist into silver. The pack settlement slept beneath it, quiet, guarded, haunted. But inside the Alpha's safe house, sleep came for everyone except 2 souls. Mira lay still on the bed near the hearth, pretending to rest. But her mind wouldn't stop. It spun, twisting through memory and fear until she could barely breathe. The fire's light brushed her face, revealing the faint shimmer of tears she refused to shed. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw fire, not from the hearth, from her past, the smell of burning wood, the screams. Her mother's voice breaking through the chaos. Run, Mira, run, and don't look back. She was 16 again, barefoot in the ashes of the Vale Pack's village. Flames danced on the bodies of those who'd once called her sister. Her home burned because of her, because the healing power inside her had turned to fire. And no one could understand it. Witchborn, they had called her. Cursed. Moonless child. And she had believed them. Mira turned on the bed, her breath hitching. The amulet pulsed softly against her collarbone, warm as a heartbeat. It was the only thing left of her mother. The last thing she'd touched before the world went black that night. She pressed her fingers to it, whispering into the dark. Why did you leave me with this? Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. The glow faded. Like an answer she couldn't bear to hear. Outside her door, someone shifted, a faint scrape of boots. She froze. He was there again. Rylan. The Alpha's scent drifted through the space. Pine, rain, and something raw, animal, electric. He hadn't entered. He never did. But she could feel him. His presence filled the air, heavy and deliberate. He'd been watching her for nights, not out of distrust, though part of him didn't trust easily, but because he couldn't stop himself. Rylan Thorne, Alpha of Silver Ridge, the wolf forged from war and duty, couldn't stop thinking about the stranger he'd pulled from the river. He leaned against the doorway now, arms crossed, eyes shadowed in moonlight. His wolf stirred restlessly beneath his skin. He should have sent her away. The council had demanded it. A human-born stray with rogue energy, unacceptable, dangerous. The elders had already chosen his Luna, Lady Serene of the North Claw Pack, a union that would seal their alliance and end a blood feud. It was perfect politics. But politics didn't make his chest ache the way Mira's silence did. He remembered the look in her eyes when she first woke, defiant and frightened all at once. He'd seen many wolves broken by pain, but hers was different. Her pain wasn't weakness. It was power waiting to ignite. He'd tried to ignore it, to ignore her. But every time she moved, every time she breathed, the air between them tightened. Her scent had begun to haunt him. Wild herbs, moonlight, and something that whispered of home. That night, as he listened from the shadows, her whisper reached him. "Why did you leave me with this?" Her voice, so soft, so wounded, cut straight through his composure. His hand flexed against the doorframe. He wanted to step inside, to tell her she wasn't alone anymore. But words like that, from a man like him, were dangerous. So he stayed still, caught between the instincts of an alpha and the yearning of a man. Mira's breathing steadied. Eventually, exhaustion pulled her under. But dreams found her. Dark, vivid dreams. She saw her mother again, kneeling by the river, silver hair tangled in the wind. The amulet glowed brighter in her hands. "You must never show them your light," her mother whispered. "The flame inside you doesn't heal only flesh, Mira. It heals fate. And fate fears being changed." The words echoed, then twisted, voices layered atop her mother's. The pack, the hunters, the screams. "Burn the witchborn. She's not one of us. She'll bring ruin." Mira fell to her knees in the dream, fire spilling from her palms. She tried to stop it, but it consumed everything. The forest, the sky, her own reflection. Then, darkness. She woke up gasping. Sweat clung to her skin. The fire in the hearth had dimmed. Her heart pounded against her ribs. But she wasn't alone. Rylan stood across the room, his eyes locked on her. He'd come in. At some point, his resolve had broken. The chair near the wall was pushed aside, as if he'd tried to keep his distance, but failed halfway. Her throat tightened. "Were you watching me?" He didn't flinch. "You were crying." "I don't need your pity." "It's not a pity." Something in his voice stopped her from arguing. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate. Each footfall matched the rhythm of her pulse. His gaze softened when it met hers, and the moonlight caught the gold in his eyes. "Who burned your home, Mira?" he asked quietly. Her lips trembled. "My own pack." Silence. "Why?" "Because I couldn't control it. The fire, the healing, the power." She looked away, fingers clutching the amulet. "They said I was a curse." He took another step closer. "And do you believe them?" Her laugh was sharp, bitter. "I believed them long enough to run until my feet bled." He frowned, studying her face, the shadows under her eyes, the way her shoulders trembled though she stood tall. He'd seen warriors face death without fear, but the courage in her, the quiet, battered kind, made his chest tighten. Rylan reached out before he could stop himself. His fingers brushed her arm, just above the scar. The mark pulsed faintly under his touch. Her breath caught. "It's not a curse," he said softly. "It's the moon's mark." Mira stared at him, voice trembling. "And what if you're wrong?" "Then I'll bear the ruin with you." The words slipped out like a promise he didn't intend to make, but once they hung in the air, neither of them could take them back. Days passed, and Silver Ridge shifted uneasily. Rumors spread like wildfire. The Alpha was protecting a stranger, a cursed one. The council murmured disapproval behind closed doors. Even Ryland's beta avoided meeting his eyes, but Ryland didn't care, not anymore. Because every night he found himself drawn to her room, listening, guarding, pretending it was duty. And every morning he found her by the edge of the woods, practicing control, hands glowing, trembling, failing. Each failure ended the same way. Mira collapsing, tears burning down her cheeks as she whispered, "I can't." And every time, Ryland appeared, silent, patient. He never scolded, never spoke unless she asked. But when she faltered, his presence steadied her, like gravity. Sometimes their hands brushed. Sometimes their eyes meet too long. Something unspoken grew between them, a slow, dangerous warmth neither could name. He could sense it more than she could. The bond, faint but undeniable. The scent of destiny in her blood. But bonds were chains, and Ryland Thorne was already bound. To his pack, to his duty, to a promise carved in politics. The council's Luna would arrive soon, and when she did, Mira would have no place here. That night, the pack gathered for the moonrite. Ryland stood before the sacred fire, his shoulders squared. Mira lingered in the shadows beyond the circle, unseen. The elders' chants echoed through the valley. The Alpha's role was to bless the next moon cycle, to reaffirm loyalty. But Ryland's gaze kept straying toward the tree line, toward her, and she felt it, that invisible thread pulling between them, taut, trembling, alive. When the ritual ended, she turned to leave, but he caught her wrist. The crowd was gone. The night was silent except for the river. "You shouldn't be here," he said again. Her voice cracked. "You keep saying that, but you never tell me to leave." He exhaled, eyes burning gold under the moonlight. "Because I can't." Their silence was electric. The air throbbed with everything they couldn't say. "Mira," he whispered, her name heavy in his throat. She met his gaze, trembling. "What are we doing?" "Something we shouldn't." His hand moved to her cheek, just once, a fleeting touch, before he stepped back, breaking whatever spell bound them. "If I don't stop this," he murmured, "I'll never be able to." And then he was gone, vanishing into the trees. Mira stood there, heartbreaking, the moon watching in quiet pity. But the bond was awake now, and neither the council nor destiny could silence it. She looked down at her hands, glowing faintly, pulsing with the same rhythm as her heart. For the first time in years, she didn't feel cursed. She felt chosen. "If your heart aches for Mira and the Alpha who shouldn't love her," the narrator whispers, voice trembling with emotion, "don't stop now." Subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories, where forbidden hearts find their way through darkness and fate burns brighter than fire. The bond has only begun to awaken. The wind carried a low hum that night, ancient and knowing. It moved through the pines like a living whisper, brushing over Mira's face as she followed Ryland deeper into the forest. The moon was high, pale and swollen, pouring liquid silver through the trees. They had been walking for hours, leaving the safety of Silver Ridge behind. The pack's patrols had thinned. The air grew colder. Ahead, the forest shifted. Older trees, thicker roots, the faint scent of time itself. Ryland's voice was low when he finally spoke. "We're almost there." "Where?" Mira asked, her breath visible in the cold. "The Moonstone Grove." Her steps faltered. The name alone carried weight. whispered in stories told around dying fires, a sacred place, forbidden to those not chosen by the moon. Why there? Rylan glanced at the limp bundle in his arms, a young wolf, poisoned, dying. His Beta's younger brother. He doesn't have till dawn. The grove. It's the only place where the old light still lives. Mira said nothing more. She just nodded, though her chest tightened. She'd heard tales of the grove, where the first Alpha once spoke to the moon goddess, where the stone still remembered her voice. But to walk there as an outsider, a curse-bearer, it felt like stepping into blasphemy. Still, she followed him, because she couldn't stand to see the pain in his eyes, the way he carried his pack's burden as if it were his own blood. The forest thickened, shadows clung to the trees. Then, suddenly, light. It wasn't from the moon, not entirely. It shimmered from ahead, where the ground opened into a clearing ringed with towering stones. They gleamed faintly, veins of silver running through black rock. The air was heavy, humming with something alive. Mira stopped at the edge. Every instinct screamed at her to stay back. Rylan looked over his shoulder. You feel it too. It's ancient, she whispered, like it's watching. It remembers. His voice softened. The old gods don't forget their children. He stepped into the grove, kneeling by the largest stone. The dying wolf lay still in his arms, chest barely moving. Hold him, Rylan said quietly. Mira hesitated, but knelt beside him. The wolf's fur was damp with sweat. His pulse fluttered weakly beneath her touch. Poison from shadow fangs, she murmured. Their venom corrupts the blood. Rylan's jaw tightened. Can you help him? She didn't know. Her power wasn't steady. It wasn't even safe. But she couldn't say no. She placed her hands over the wound, and the amulet at her neck began to hum. The stones responded. One by one they pulsed with faint light, like hearts waking from long sleep. Mira, Rylan's voice faltered. What's happening? I don't know. The glow spread through her hands. Her veins burned silver. The air trembled. Suddenly, symbols carved into the stone nearest her flared. Old runes she didn't recognize, shining with blinding light. The ground trembled, the wolf beneath her body convulsing once, twice, then stilled. Mira gasped, pulling her hands away. The light receded. The grove fell silent. The wolf opened its eyes, clear, steady, alive. Rylan's breath left him in a rush. You did it. But Mira wasn't listening. Something seared against her wrist. She looked down. A mark was burning into her skin, spiraling like flame. Silver and red intertwined. She bit back a cry. What is this? The voice that answered wasn't Rylan's. The mark of the flame-bearer. The words came from the shadows beyond the stones. An elder stepped forward, her hair white as ash, her eyes clouded with visions. The seer of Silver Ridge. None had seen her beyond her temple in years, yet here she stood, trembling as if the air itself carried prophecy. She approached slowly, her gaze fixed on Mira's wrist. The flame-bearer lives, she whispered, her voice quivering. The prophecy. The moon was right. Rylan rose sharply. What prophecy? The seer turned toward him, her face pale. The one your ancestors buried, the one that speaks of ruin and rebirth. Mira took a step back. I don't understand. The seer raised a trembling hand. It was written that one born under the blood eclipse, neither wolf nor human, would rise with the flame of the moon. Her power would heal or burn the heart of the packs. She will either unite or destroy. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ryland's jaw clenched. You mean her? The seer nodded. The mark confirms it. The goddess has chosen. Mira shook her head. No, you're wrong. I don't want this. I didn't ask for this. The seer's voice was calm but heavy. It is not about what you want, child. The moon chooses, not you. Mira backed away, her breath quick and shallow. The ground beneath her feet pulsed faintly with silver light, like the earth itself recognized her name. I can't, she whispered. I can't be what you think I am. Ryland stepped toward her, voice firm but gentle. Mira, look at me. She did, and saw not judgment but understanding. You don't have to believe it now, he said softly, but I do. Her lips parted in disbelief. Why? Because I've seen what you can do. You healed him when no one else could. You touched the stones, and they answered. That's not a curse, Mira. That's a calling. Tears welled in her eyes, her voice breaking. A calling to destroy your world. He shook his head slowly. Or to save it. The seer lowered her gaze. If the packs learn what she is, they'll come for her. You know that. Ryland nodded, his expression turning cold, calculating, the alpha emerging behind the man. Then they won't learn. He turned to Mira, his tone now sharp with authority. From this moment, no one must know about the mark. Not the council, not Luna to be, no one. The seer hesitated. Keeping such truth hidden may anger the moon herself. Ryland's eyes flashed gold. Then she can take it up with me. The old woman smiled faintly, as if seeing something even he couldn't. You speak like your father once did, stubborn as stone. But remember, even stones crack when fire finds them. She turned and vanished into the trees, leaving her warning echoing in the cold air. Mira sank to the ground, her whole body trembling. The mark still glowed faintly, the light pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Ryland crouched beside her. You're safe here, he said quietly. The morning broke blood red. The sun rose over Silver Ridge like an omen, pale light swallowed by crimson haze. The air was heavy, restless, the kind that warned of storms long before thunder ever touched the sky. Today was the treaty summit, the day peace was supposed to hold. Wolves from every pack had gathered in the great hall. Stone walls etched with the scars of past wars, the scent of dominance thick in the air. Banners fluttered from the rafters, Silver Ridge, Moonvale, Bloodfang. 3 empires bound by uneasy silence. Mira stood beside Ryland near the dais, hidden beneath a hooded cloak. Her heart was a drum in her chest. Every gaze that lingered too long made her want to vanish into shadow. But she couldn't leave. Not when the council would meet to decide the pack's future. Not when Ryland needed her close. The mark beneath her sleeve burned faintly, as if aware of what was to come. Ryland stood tall before the assembly, the Alpha's mark gleaming on his neck. His voice carried through the hall, deep and measured. We meet not as rivals, but as kin under one moon, he said. The Bloodfangs, the Moonvale, the Ridge, 3 packs, 1 purpose, to protect our kind from the human threat. If we fracture now, we lose everything. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Approval from some, suspicion from others. At the far end of the hall, Alpha Kyle of Bloodfang leaned back in his seat, his scarred face twisted in a mockery of a smile. His crimson eyes caught the light like shards of broken glass. Beautiful words, Rylan, he said, voice smooth as venom, but words don't erase betrayal. The tension in the hall thickened instantly. Rylan's jaw tightened. What betrayal? Kyle rose slowly, his massive frame casting a shadow across the table. 2 weeks ago, 3 of my scouts were found dead near your borders, their throats torn out. You think I wouldn't recognize Silver Ridge fangs? Gasps, growls. The council members stirred. Rylan didn't move. My wolves didn't do this. Then who did? Kale's lip curled. The moon goddess herself. The hall broke into murmurs again. Suspicion, fear, accusation. Mira's pulse hammered in her ears. Something was wrong. She could feel it. That subtle, crawling tension that came before an ambush. Her senses sharpened, the faint hum of her gift whispering danger through her blood. She turned toward the open balcony above the dais and froze. A flicker of movement, a glint of steel, a scent of rot and iron. Rylan, she screamed. The explosion shattered the hall. Flames burst from the balcony. Arrows tipped with fire rained down like meteors. Wolves shouted, tables splintered, the air filled with smoke and chaos. Kale roared. His warriors lunged forward, blades drawn, fangs bared. The treaty was ash before it ever existed. Roylan threw Mira behind him, shifting mid-motion, bones snapping, fur erupting, eyes blazing gold. His roar split the hall, primal and commanding. Defend the ridge! Wolves shifted all around, bodies colliding in a storm of fur and blood. The scent of burning stone filled the air. Mira stumbled back, her cloak tearing, the mark on her wrist flaring in response to the heat. She watched a blood-fang warrior slash through one of Rylan's guards, a boy barely older than 16, and something inside her broke. The boy fell, gasping. Poison on the blade turned his veins black. Mira, stay back, Rylan growled through the chaos, ripping another attacker apart. But she didn't listen. She couldn't. She dropped to the boy's side, pressing her hand against his chest. The mark seared through her bandage, burning white-hot. The ground answered. The flames that had devoured the hall shifted, bending toward her as if drawn by breath. Silver light burst from her palms, spiraling into the air like wildfire reborn. Every head turned. Her hood fell back, and the truth blazed for all to see. Silver flame, pure, divine, unstoppable, erupted from her skin, wrapping around her like wings of light. It seared through the smoke, consuming poison, devouring darkness. The boy gasped once, and his heart started beating again. But the hall was silent now. Every wolf, ally and enemy alike, stared at her in horror. The cursed flame, someone whispered, the prophecy. She's the one. Kale's eyes widened, then his lips twisted into a grin that was pure cruelty. So it's true, he snarled. The curse was reborn. The flame-bearer lives. He raised his blade, black with venom. Then she dies tonight. Rylan moved before anyone else could. He leapt over the broken table, shifting back to human midair, landing between Kyle and Mira with a snarl that shook the air. If she burns, he said, voice low and deadly, I burn too. The entire hall froze. The declaration hung in the air like lightning, shocking, impossible, irreversible. Kyle's eyes narrowed. You'd throw away your throne for her. I already did, Rylan said. Kyle lunged. Their blades met in a flash of sparks. Alpha against alpha, strength against fury. The air cracked with every strike, claws tearing through stone. The council fled as the two forces collided again and again, growls echoing off the walls. Mira tried to rise, but her knees buckled. The light still pulsed around her, too bright, too alive. She couldn't control it. Every heartbeat sent another surge of power into the air, warping fire and light together. She heard Ryland snarl, heard steel meet flesh. Cale staggered, bleeding, but he didn't fall. "You protect her now, Ryland," he spat. "But when the packs learn what she is, when they see the fire that eats her alive, they'll come for you both." He twisted his blade and threw himself backward, shifting into his massive black wolf form. His pack followed, retreating into the smoke. The hall was left in ruin, the treaty shattered, the scent of blood heavy in the air. Ryland turned, and for the first time, his eyes held something Mira had never seen before. Not fear, not anger, sorrow. She tried to speak, but her voice came out a whisper. "I didn't mean to." "I know," he said softly, but his tone carried a weight she couldn't bear. She looked around. The surviving wolves stared at her, some in awe, others in hatred. One council member pointed at her, trembling. "You saw it. She brought the flame. The goddess's wrath is upon us." "The flame-bearer destroys," another hissed. "She'll bring ruin." Mira took a step back, her hands shaking. "No, I was saving him." "They don't care," Ryland said, his voice rough. "To them, power is just another kind of threat." She swallowed hard. "Then what now?" He glanced at the shattered doorway, at the dying light spilling in. "Now," he said quietly, "we fight the world." That night, the moon rose blood-red again. The ridge burned. The packs turned on one another, alliances fracturing faster than wounds could heal. Rumors spread like wildfire. "The flame-bearer walks among us. The cursed one has returned. The prophecy begins." Mira stayed hidden in the ruins of the old chapel outside the city. The mark on her wrist glowed faintly, pulsing with guilt. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of those who had looked at her with fear instead of gratitude. When Ryland came to her, his shirt torn, blood staining his side, she didn't turn to face him. "You should have let me go," she whispered. He stepped closer. "I can't." "You saw what happened there. They'll never follow you now. You stood in front of them and declared yourself bound to a monster." He caught her wrist, forcing her to look at him. "You're not a monster." "Then what am I?" He hesitated. Something the moon tried to erase, and failed. His hand lingered on her cheek, the touch soft despite the calluses. "I'd rather lose a kingdom than lose you," he said quietly. Her breath caught. "You already might." "I know." He leaned forward until their foreheads touched, the silence between them heavy with things they couldn't say. Outside, thunder rolled across the valley. The sound of wolves howling rose in the distance, not in unity but in war. "When the world turns its claws against you," the narrator breathes, voice trembling with emotion, "love becomes both the blade and the shield. But every shield cracks eventually. If you've been caught in this storm of hearts and fire, don't miss the next chapter of Moonlight Mate Stories, where love burns brighter than fate." The storm found them before dawn. Rain lashed through the valley, chasing them higher into the mountains. The world below burned. The ridge was no longer safe, the treaties nothing more than ash carried by wind. Mira ran until her lungs felt like shards of ice, every step haunted by distant howls. Rylan led her through the darkness, his body bloodied, his movements sharp and purposeful, even as exhaustion pulled at him. They found shelter where the cliffs met the water, a cavern carved behind a roaring waterfall. It was hidden, almost invisible from outside, and the air inside was thick with mist and echoes. Rylan stumbled as they entered, and Mira caught his arm. Warm blood soaked through her fingers. "You're bleeding again," she whispered. He grunted, shaking his head. "It's nothing." But when the light from her flickering flame brushed across his chest, the truth showed itself. 3 deep slashes from shoulder to ribs, already swelling, the edges dark with poison. Mira's breath caught. "You'll die if I don't treat this." Rylan sank to his knees, one hand braced against the cave wall. His voice was low, rough. "You can't use that power again. Not here, not now. If anyone's tracking you, that light will call them." Her heart twisted. "And if I don't, you'll bleed out before sunrise." He met her gaze, golden eyes burning even through pain. "Then you'll have to trust me to survive it." For a moment, neither spoke. Only the waterfall's roar filled the silence, the sound of water crashing against stone, unending and cold. Then, quietly, Mira tore the hem of her cloak and pressed it against his wound. Blood seeped through instantly. He hissed between his teeth. "Careful." "Hold still," she murmured, her voice trembling but steadying with each word. "You saved me back there. Let me return the favor." He laughed softly, bitterly. "Saving you wasn't a favor. It was instinct." She froze. Instinct. His eyes flicked up to hers. The firelight caught in them, alive and haunting. "Every wolf knows when something is his. The moment I saw you in that river, bleeding, half broken, the part of me I've spent years burying decided you were mine to protect." The word struck something deep in her, something terrifying and beautiful. "I'm not yours," she whispered. "I know." His lips curved slightly. "But tell that to my heart." They fell silent again, both aware of the way the air seemed to thicken between them, charged, trembling. Mira wrung out the soaked cloth, ignoring the warmth spreading across her cheeks. Her fingers brushed his skin as she cleaned his wound. It was hot, fevered. His muscles tensed under her touch, not from pain, but from something else entirely. He didn't look at her, but his jaw tightened. "You're too gentle." "I wasn't always," she said softly. "Once, I thought kindness could change the world, but people burned my home for it." That made him glance at her. "Your pack?" She nodded. "They called me witch-born, said my fire was a curse. My mother died protecting me. After that, I stopped believing I belonged anywhere." The way he looked at her then, it wasn't to pity, it was recognition. "I know what that feels like," he said finally. "To lose everything because of something you didn't choose." "You?" He leaned back, head against the cold rock. The rain outside muffled his voice, making every word sound like a confession meant only for her. "My brother," he said quietly. "He was supposed to be alpha. I was the fighter, the reckless one. During the border war, rogues attacked our patrol. I hesitated. Thought I could reason with them. I was wrong." His breath hitched, just slightly. "By the time I shifted, he was already dead. My father said I killed him by being weak, so I learned to never hesitate again." Mira's hand still. For the first time, she saw past the armor, past the command and the Alpha's fury, and saw the man beneath it, the grief carved deep in him, the guilt that never healed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Don't be. You didn't swing the blade. But you still carry it." The words hung between them, heavy and true. Minutes passed. The air in the cave grew warmer from the firelight, mist swirling like breath. Mira tied the last strip of cloth over his ribs, her fingers lingering just a moment longer than they should have. He didn't move. He just watched her. The curve of her jaw, the shadow of her lashes, the faint tremor in her hands. "You shouldn't have to hide what you are," he said quietly. "That power, it's not a curse. It destroyed everything I touched. Then let me be the first thing it doesn't." She froze. The honesty in his voice cut through her defenses faster than any blade. Her pulse raced. She didn't know what scared her more, the darkness outside or the feeling blooming inside the cave. She met his gaze, and for a heartbeat the world fell away. No prophecy, no war, just two broken souls breathing the same air. The space between them closed slowly, drawn by something neither could name. Her breath brushed his cheek, his fingers ghosted over her wrist. "Rylan," she whispered. "Mira." His voice was lower, rougher. "Tell me to stop." She didn't, but just as the air trembled, just as the spark between them flared, a distant howl sliced through the night. Not one, dozens. Rylan stiffened instantly. "They found us." Mira's eyes widened. "Already?" He pushed himself up despite the pain. "They'll follow the blood trail. We need to move." "But you're not healed." He turned, his gaze fierce. "I told you, trust me to survive it." Then, softer, barely above the sound of the waterfall, he added, "Or leave." She stared at him, torn between fear and something far more dangerous. "Trust you," she whispered, "when every pack out there wants me dead. When was the last man who said those words burned my home to ash?" His expression didn't waver. "I'm not him." "And how do I know that?" He stepped closer, the glow of the flame catching the scar that cut across his collarbone. "Because I'd burn before I let the world touch you again." The word struck deep, not as promises, but as truth. Mira's throat tightened. She wanted to run, to keep moving, to hide from the thing that frightened her most, not the rogues, not the prophecy, but this man who looked at her as though she was both salvation and ruin. But she didn't move. She reached out, fingertips brushing his hand. "Then don't make me regret it." "I won't." For a brief moment the tension broke, replaced by something quieter, fragile. She helped him pack what little they had, dried herbs, flint, a torn map. Outside, the rain softened to mist, the storm finally passing. When they stepped into the moonlight beyond the falls, the world seemed to hold its breath. The forest glowed silver, the river below churning under the moon. Every leaf shimmered with droplets like scattered stars. Rylan led her down the rocky slope, his steps uneven but sure. The scent of blood and smoke lingered in the air, faint but dangerous. They didn't speak for a long while. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was charged, alive with everything they hadn't said. Finally, Mira broke it. "When this ends," she murmured, "what happens to us?" He didn't look at her, just kept walking. "When this ends, I'll tell you everything." His words were quiet, but they sank deep, anchoring something in her heart that shouldn't have existed. Hope. She didn't ask what he meant by everything. She was afraid to, but when he reached back and took her hand, just for a moment, just enough to steady her, she didn't pull away. The waterfall roared behind them, drowning out the world. Ahead, the forest waited, dark, unknown, alive with danger, and for the first time in years, Mira felt something stronger than fear. She felt like she wasn't alone. In the quiet between battles, the narrator breathes, voice hushed and trembling with warmth. Love doesn't shout, it lingers. It hides in the small moments, in the trust between breaths. But trust can break as easily as it's built. If this story touched you, if you felt every heartbeat, every word, subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories. There's more to come, and the moon always remembers its lovers. The wind howled like the ghosts of the fallen. Smoke from the battle still clung to the night air. But inside the council chamber, silence was the sharper weapon. Dozens of eyes fixed on her, cold, judging, afraid. Mira stood at the center of the stone floor, chains biting into her wrists, her silver hair matted with ash. The moonlight filtered through the stained glass above her, breaking into fragments of white and blue across her face. At the head of the council, Elder Damaris's voice rang out. "Tell us, Flame-bearer, how many did you burn before you fled your mother's land? How many wolves screamed your name before the fire took them?" Her heart stopped. Rylan was there too, standing tall, armor glinting faintly. His eyes met hers, full of storm and confusion, but he said nothing. Not yet. The elder stepped forward, holding an old parchment, brittle and dark with age. "We have found the record," he declared. The prophecy wasn't the first time the flame came. 2 decades ago, a village was erased. Only a child survived, marked by light. That child was you, Mira. The words hit her like a blade through the chest. Her breath came sharp, shallow. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not true. I never—" But before she could speak again, a voice cut through the room. "It is true." Heads turned. It was Cale, Rylan's beta, his most trusted friend. His expression was hard, unreadable. "I've seen the mark on her wrist before. My father was among those who died in the flame. It was her power that wiped out the Crescent Moon Pack." Gasps filled the chamber. Mira's knees buckled. Memories flashed unbidden. Flames devouring homes, screams echoing in the night, her mother's desperate voice shouting for her to run. She had been a child. She didn't remember what happened that night, only heat and loss. Her vision blurred. She looked at Rylan, her voice breaking. "Tell them it's not true, please." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His jaw clenched, his body rigid between duty and instinct. The silence was an answer. Mira's eyes widened, filling with tears that burned like acid. You said you believed in me." Rylan's expression twisted in pain. "Mira, I have to—" "Have to what? Protect your throne? Your council?" Her voice cracked, raw with disbelief. "You stood before the Bloodfangs and said you'd burn with me. Was that only when no one was watching?" Her chains rattled as she stepped back. The silver cuffs glowed faintly, their magic weakening in the wake of her fury. Kyle sneered. "She's unstable. The same cursed power that took my father now threatens us all." The room erupted, growls, shouts, chaos. Rylan shouted for order, but it was too late. The energy in the chamber thickened, vibrating with ancient tension. The runes on Mira's skin began to pulse. one after another, like a heartbeat of light. "Stop!" Rylan shouted. He reached for her, but she recoiled. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "You should have trusted me." And then, everything burned. The air split open with a scream of fire. Chains shattered into molten shards. A blinding flash engulfed the hall. Wolves ducked for cover, elders shielded their faces, and Rylan was thrown backward by the force of it. When the light dimmed, the council floor was scorched black. The pillars cracked, and a cold wind blew through the broken windows. Mira was gone. Only the faint shimmer of silver flames remained, flickering like sorrow incarnate. Rylan awoke hours later among ruins. The scent of smoke still hung thick in the air. His armor was scorched, his body bruised, but none of that pain compared to the emptiness in his chest. Kyle knelt nearby, one arm wrapped in bandages. "She's gone. The flame-bearer fled north. The forest burns in her wake." Rylan's voice was hoarse. "You shouldn't have spoken." "She's a danger to everyone," Kyle snapped. "You saw what she did. You saw what she is." Rylan turned to him slowly, eyes shadowed. "She saved your life in the Bloodfang raid." Kyle hesitated, guilt flickering in his gaze, but pride smothered it. "And nearly took it now." Rylan rose to his feet, shoulders heavy. His wolf stirred inside, restless, torn. He looked toward the shattered window, where the night stretched endless and cold. "Find the others. Rebuild the council. I'll bring her back." Kyle's jaw dropped. "You can't mean to." "I'll bring her back," Rylan repeated, voice like steel. "Because I failed her once. I won't fail her again." He shifted into his wolf form, a massive black beast wreathed in faint silver embers, and without another word, he vanished into the storm. Deep within the wilds, Mira ran until her lungs burned. The forest bent away from her, trees bowing beneath her heat, rivers hissing to steam as her tears fell. She wanted to stop, to scream, to forget. But her magic had other plans. It pulsed within her like a second heartbeat, alive, unrelenting. The more she fought it, the more it consumed her. "You are the flame," a voice whispered within her mind. "You were never meant to hide." She collapsed beside a frozen lake, its surface shimmering with moonlight. Her reflection stared back, eyes glowing white, skin traced with veins of silver light. She looked like a goddess. She felt like a monster. And somewhere, far away, she could feel Rylan's energy, a faint thread connecting them, throbbing with anguish and longing. She wanted to tear it apart. She wanted to hold on to it. Both urges warred inside her until she screamed, a sound that shattered the ice across the lake. The moon rose higher. The prophecy stirred. The wolves of every pack whispered her name that night. Not Mira, not a healer, not outcast, but the lost goddess of flame. And the world, sensing the old magic's return, began to shift. Ancient runes reawakened in hidden temples. The Moonstone Grove trembled. Even the Bloodfang Alpha lifted his head to the wind, his lips curling into a smile. "She's back," he murmured. "The flame that will either unite us or destroy us all." And in the distance, Rylan ran through the snow, following the scent of smoke and sorrow. "Hold on, Mira," he whispered into the wind. "I'm coming for you." But in his heart he wondered, would she ever forgive him? Or had he already lost her to the fire? The Bloodfangs had always been wolves of the dark, born from shadow, forged in blood. Now, their valley burned with silver light. The ancient stones of their fortress pulsed with stolen runes. the air thick with power and fear. At the center of it all, the Bloodfang Alpha stood before the altar, his crimson cloak fluttering like flame. In his hand, a dagger carved from moonstone, slick with blood. Around him, his pack chanted the old incantation, the one forbidden by the moon goddess herself. They were called the Flame Bearers, not to honor her, to break her. The ritual circle throbbed with dark energy, a vortex spiraling outward. Sparks leapt from the ground, twisting into the shape of fire. For a moment it seemed to work, but then something shifted. The wind turned cold. The chant faltered. From beyond the valley's edge, a blinding light sliced through the fog. Wolves fell to their knees as the trees bent in reverence. The moon, swollen and white above, cast its full gaze upon the one who walked through fire as if it bowed before her. Mira had returned, her hair rippled with silver flame, each strand alive. Her eyes glowed white, not with rage, but with truth. She no longer trembled, she no longer hid. The fire that once terrified her now answered her call like an old friend. Every step she took melted snow and reformed it into crystal. The earth hummed beneath her bare feet, recognizing the one it had waited centuries for. She spoke, and the world listened. "You wanted my power," she said, her voice echoing across the mountains. "Come and take it." The Bloodfang Alpha bared his teeth, though his hand shook around the dagger. "You are the curse," he snarled. "Your fire took everything from us. You will end up on your knees like the witch you are." Mira's eyes burned brighter. "No," she said softly, the air trembling with the weight of her voice. "I am not your curse. I am your reckoning." Before the Alpha could move, the clouds tore apart, and from the shadows of the forest came a sound like thunder, a howl, deep, wild, and aching. Rylan. He emerged from the darkness, battered but unbroken. His armor was gone, his skin marked with claw and ash, his eyes a storm of gold and grief. He fell to one knee before her, his chest heaving. "Mira," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Forgive me, I was blind, I was weak. Let me fight by your side, or die trying." For a long moment she only stared at him, torn between fury and the ache of love she could not kill. Then, slowly, she extended her hand. "You already have," she whispered. Their palms met, and something ancient awakened. The mark on her wrist flared, mirrored by a mark that blazed suddenly upon Ryland's heart. The air ignited between them, a bridge of light linking soul to soul. The packs that had once stood divided felt it too, a pulse through their wolves, through the bond that connected every shifter under the moon. The Bloodfang Alpha roared, lunging forward. His blade met the invisible wall of her magic and shattered like glass. Mira's power surged outward. Silver flames spiraled into the sky, each flickering a heartbeat, each heartbeat a memory. Every wound, every scar, every ounce of pain she had ever known became fuel. The energy didn't destroy, it transformed. She lifted her hand, and the fire obeyed. The Bloodfangs screamed as the light washed over them, but it did not burn. It was purified. The corruption in their veins dissolved, replaced by clarity and submission. Their eyes shifted from blood red to silver white, their snarls fading into silence. The moon itself seemed to draw closer. Ryland stood beside her, his voice low. "You're not just the flame bearer," he said, awe trembling in his tone. "You're the bridge between shadow and light." Mira's gaze softened. "No," she murmured. "We both are." Then came the final strike. The Bloodfang Alpha, desperate and wild, lunged again. His claws glinted, aimed for her throat. But before he could reach her, Rylan moved, a blur of muscle and rage. He took the blow, his body colliding with the Alpha's in a crash of bone and steel. The two wolves tumbled into the ritual circle, light consuming them both. Mira screamed his name. Her power exploded, not as flame, but as pure light, blinding, endless, divine. When the radiance faded, silence reigned. The snow fell softly again, and the valley glowed under a silver dawn. The Bloodfangs had bowed their heads. Their Alpha was gone, consumed not by death, but by the cleansing force of the goddess's will. And at the center of the circle, Rylan knelt, alive but trembling, his body glowing faintly where her magic had touched him. Mira ran to him, her voice breaking. "Rylan!" He looked up, a faint smile on his lips. "Told you," he rasped, "I'd fight by your side." She cradled his face in her hands, tears falling onto his skin like drops of molten silver. The fire within her dimmed, not from weakness, but from peace. For the first time, she didn't need to fight to prove who she was. She was. The packs emerged from hiding, their leaders bowing before her, one by one. No one spoke, no one dared. The prophecy had come to pass, not through conquest, but through compassion. From the heavens, a voice descended, like a song carried on the wind. "At last, you are whole." It was the moon goddess herself, her voice wrapped around Mira like a caress, ancient and proud. "You were never the curse, my child. You were the flame I placed to guide them home." Mira closed her eyes, the weight of lifetimes dissolving. Her power sank back into her skin, leaving only the faint shimmer of moonlight upon her shoulders. She stood tall, surrounded by those who once feared her. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "I am not your weapon," she declared. "I am not your sacrifice. I am the flame that heals, not the fire that destroys. Remember that." The wolves bowed, their howls rising in unison, a sound not of submission, but of unity. Rylan rose beside her, his hand finding hers. Their bond glowed faintly, a promise written in starlight. And when the first dawn broke over the mountains, Mira turned to him with a faint, weary smile. "What happens now?" she whispered. He looked toward the horizon. "Now?" he said softly. "We rebuilt. Together." She nodded, resting her head against his shoulder. For the first time since her exile, the silence wasn't heavy. It was sacred. The moon hung above them, serene and watchful. The prophecy's final verse lingered on the wind. "When flame meets heart, the packs shall rise as one, and peace shall burn brighter than war." Mira smiled faintly as the wind carried her hair across her face. Her eyes met Rylan's, and for once, there was no fear between them. Only fire, only love. The forest exhaled, a slow, shivering breath after the chaos. Ash and silver leaves mingled beneath their feet, twinkling faintly where the first rays of dawn struck them. Every branch, every fallen tree, every stone seemed to hum with the echo of what had happened. The world had changed, and so had they. Mira and Rylan stood together in the clearing where the ritual had taken place. The scent of soot lingered in the air, tinged with something sweet, something pure, the scent of renewal. Mira's silver-white eyes reflected the rising sun, but they also held something else, a question, fragile yet fierce. Was it destiny? Or did we choose this? She asked softly, her voice almost swallowed by the morning wind. Her hands trembled slightly as they rested against her chest, where the pulse of her power had once been a storm, and now was a calm, steady light. Ryland's golden eyes softened, molten with emotion. He reached out, fingers brushing the back of her hand, grounding her, anchoring her to the present. "Maybe both," he said, voice low, resonant. "The world wanted to push us apart, but we found each other anyway. We made the choice to fight, to survive, to stand here, together." Her lips curved into a faint, tired smile, but her gaze never left his. She could feel the rhythm of his heartbeat, steady now, no longer weighed down by fear or guilt. In that moment, everything else, the council, the rival pacts, the prophecy, fell away. All that remained was the raw, unshakable bond between them. Around them, the forest seemed to lean closer, listening. The ashes of destruction sparkled faintly, as though the earth itself was mourning and celebrating at once. Birds began to stir in the trees, hesitant at first, then breaking into song. The silver river nearby reflected both the sky and the glimmer of her newly embraced power. Mira drew a slow breath, the weight of what she had carried for so long settling into something lighter. Her voice was barely more than a whisper, but it carried across the clearing. "All those who feared me, they were wrong. I am not a weapon. I am not a curse. I am myself." Ryland stepped closer, wrapping an arm around her waist. He lowered his head, brushing his forehead to hers, a silent affirmation. "And you will never be alone again," he murmured. His hand pressed gently to the small mark glowing on her wrist, the final sign of their bond, the promise of everything they had survived and everything they would face together. The wind carried a sound, faint at first, then stronger, a chorus of wolf howls from every pack, near and far, announcing a new era. Peace, fragile but real, had returned. The bloodfangs no longer snarled in the shadows. The Silver Ridge wolves stood proudly, their leader reunited with her mate. Even the distant peaks seemed to glow under the protective embrace of the moon. Mira's gaze lifted to the heavens, silver flames flickering along her skin like soft dancing light. "It's beautiful," she breathed, awe mixed with relief. "The world, it's alive again." Ryland's golden eyes followed hers. "Yes," he said, voice full of awe and love, "and we'll protect it, together." Her fingers intertwined with his, a simple gesture that carried the weight of every battle, every tear, every stolen moment of hope. She could feel it, the lingering magic of the silver flame, tempered now by compassion and control. It was no longer something to fear. It was part of her, part of them. The moon, full and bright above them, seemed to pulse in approval. Shadows fled from the edges of the clearing, replaced by silver light spilling across the forest floor. Each beam touched the wolves nearby, connecting them to the moment, the rebirth of the packs, the triumph of love, the quiet victory of courage and heart. Mira turned to Rylan, eyes glimmering with unshed tears. "Do you ever wonder if they'll understand us, if they'll see we didn't just survive, we chose each other?" Rylan pulled her close, resting his chin on the top of her head. "They'll see," he whispered. "The fire in you, in us, it speaks louder than fear. They can't deny it, and neither will we." A hush fell over the forest. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then, softly, a voice, A whisper carried on silver currents of moonlight, a voice older than the mountains themselves, brushed across their ears. At last, the flame-bearer is whole, the pacts are one, and the bond forged in fire shall endure forever. Mira closed her eyes, letting the warmth of that ancient blessing wash over her. She felt her heart swell, not with pride, but with a deep, consuming gratitude. Every scar, every loss, every moment of terror had led to this. She was not alone. She was not to mistake. She was a love incarnate. She opened her eyes and met Ryland's gaze. Their souls spoke without words, an understanding as old and as deep as time. They had survived prophecy, betrayal, fire, and shadow, and now, together, they were unstoppable. The forest exhaled again, this time in serenity. The river glimmered like molten silver, the trees swayed gently, and even the distant mountains seemed to bow in reverence. And as the first tendrils of morning sunlight brushed the clearing, Mira lifted her face to the sky and whispered, softly, fiercely, "We are here, we are alive, and we are free." Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? If this story lit something inside you, subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories, because under this moon, we tell tales that burn. The moon lingered in the sky, a silent guardian, as Mira and Ryland walked hand in hand through the ashes of the past toward the dawn of a new era. Their steps echoed hope, love, and unbreakable unity. The valley lay in a fragile calm. Dawn's first light painted the trees in soft gold and silver, yet beneath that serene glow, a pulse of tension remained, like a heartbeat barely heard over the hum of life returning. Mira and Ryland walked side by side, their fingers intertwined, carrying the weight of the night's battles and the taste of hard-won peace. The air smelled of smoke and frost, of earth and renewal, and every step they took seemed to sing of survival, of victory, but also of something yet unresolved. Mira's eyes lingered on the horizon. The river mirrored the sky's brilliance, rippling softly, yet her intuition prickled. Something beyond the valley stirred. Something hidden. A memory of fire flickered within her, not from the battle she had won, but from a shadow she had felt, deep and ancient, beyond even the prophecy that had dominated her life. Ryland's gaze followed hers, sensing her unease. He brushed a strand of damp hair from her face, his fingers lingering at the curve of her jaw. "You feel it too, don't you?" he asked quietly. There was no fear in his voice, only caution, and the weight of shared knowledge between them. Mira nodded, silent. She could feel the magic still coursing beneath her skin, the silver flame tempered, yet alive. And somewhere in the wind, she sensed another presence. It was faint, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakable. Another fire, another soul shaped in silver and moonlight, hidden but watching, waiting. From the cliffs overlooking the valley, a shadow moved with deliberate grace. She was cloaked in darkness, but her eyes glimmered, the same molten silver fire that had marked Mira since birth. Her silhouette was statuesque, powerful, and her presence alone sent a ripple through the forest. Wolves below lifted their heads instinctively, ears pricked, sensing a force neither enemy nor friend, yet undeniable. Mira's breath hitched. There was recognition, not fear, but a deep, vibrating certainty. The world had not revealed all its secrets. The silver flame was not hers alone. Someone else carried it, someone whose path had yet to cross hers, someone whose existence threatened to reshape the fragile peace they had just forged. Ryland's hand tightened around hers. "Whoever she is, she's out there for a reason," he said, low and firm, his eyes scanning the cliffs. "And whatever she wants, it won't be small." The wind carried a whisper, subtle but chilling, brushing through the trees like smoke. Mira tilted her head, straining to listen. "She is not the only one with fire in her blood." The words echoed through her mind, leaving a tremor of both excitement and dread. Her pulse quickened, her power stirred in anticipation, in recognition, in silent acknowledgement of the trials yet to come. The silver flame was more than she had known, and the story of her destiny was far from finished. The shadow on the cliff lifted her hand slightly, a silent greeting, or perhaps a warning. Mira felt a pull, magnetic and undeniable, tugging at the core of her being. There was a challenge there, but also possibility. The future was no longer hers alone to claim. Another force awaited, another story poised to ignite alongside hers. Ryland's voice, steady but laced with tension, broke through her reverie. "Whatever happens, Mira, we face it together." His golden eyes held unshakable certainty, his grip firm, a tether to reality amid the looming unknown. No matter who or what is out there, we endure, we survive, we rise. Mira's lips curved into a faint, fierce smile, tinged with determination. The night's battles had taught her resilience. The dawn's calm reminded her of hope. But the shadow on the cliff reminded her that destiny is never fully written. The silver flame in her blood was only the beginning. She looked back once toward the valley below and whispered a vow to the wind, to the moon, to the goddess whose guidance had carried her this far. "I am ready. Whatever comes, I will not falter, I will not hide. I will not fail." The shadow shifted, disappearing from view as silently as she had appeared, leaving only the faintest trace of silver light glimmering across the rocks. Mira sensed it in her bones. This was a herald of change, of challenge, of new fires yet to burn. The world had opened another door, and she would have to walk through it. The moon above, waning but steadfast, bathed the valley in soft luminescence. Its light danced across the river and the forests, touching Mira and Rylan, sealing their bond in quiet majesty. Yet even as they embraced, even as the first morning birds sang their hesitant songs, the air seemed to whisper of unseen eyes, of untold power, of stories yet unwritten. The forest exhaled softly, a sigh that carried promise and forewarning. Every leaf, every stone, every wolf felt the tremor of a coming storm. Not one of destruction, but of revelation. Mira's journey was only beginning anew, and as she and Rylan began to descend from the ridge, the camera of imagination lingering on the cliffs, the wind carried the final haunting promise. This isn't over. The fire spreads, the packs will rise, and the flame bearers are not finished. Watch closely, because the next chapter will burn brighter than this one.